And the Lord pops into my spirit the love letter from 1979. And remember, it's been gone for 25 years. And I just flush with glory bumps. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're going to give this back to me. I'm even getting glory bumps now as I remember it. And the Lord just reminded me of the last phrase of that letter: I am God, believe it and be satisfied. And I get home and I start looking up on the internet, I am God, believe it and be satisfied. And boom, that letter pops up, and there's pages and pages and pages and pages of it where people had reposted it. And I could not believe my eyes. It was word for word the letter that the Lord gave me. In the fall of 1979, I was in a weekend retreat at the university. Every person who was attending represented an organization in the university for which they were part, and it was a leadership thing. And they randomly assigned us to roommates, and I was assigned to Maureen. I'd never met her before, and she and I got along really well. And in the wee hours of the night, she led me to Christ. I was so excited to get back and share my salvation story with my boyfriend at the time, who was already a believer. And to my surprise, he broke up with me, like right there. It had nothing to do with me becoming a Christian. It was just, he couldn't even give me a reason. And I was absolutely heartbroken. So I contacted Maureen and I said, what the heck is going on here? And she said, oh, I was expecting your call. The Lord has given me a love letter for you, which was strange all by itself. So she came over and she gave me this letter from the Lord, and it was written in first person. And it was basically about how he had a plan for me and that I needed him to be my first love. And it gave me great comfort. And I kept reading that love letter over and over. And for the next 3 months, Maureen discipled me. She led me through the Bible, and she was really wonderful to build my faith. And I was beginning to grow right away. And then about 3 months in, I went to call her on the phone number that I'd always called her. And these frat boys answered the phone. And they said that they had this number the whole time and they did not know who she was. I was super confused. And I come to think of it, I'd never been to her place. I always met her at a library or she came to my dorm room, but I had never seen where she lived. So she disappeared, literally disappeared. And I looked for her at the university student records and she didn't exist. And I really, really wondered from that point on if she was an angel. I mean, I just believed in my heart she had to have been an angel. Well, you're going to have to check out the next video after this one where I learn that she actually was my guardian angel and I got to actually meet her. But that's next video's story. I passed that love letter around to dozens and dozens of people. Every time somebody was heartbroken, I would copy this dog-eared letter that was in my Bible and pass it around. I must have passed it around a dozen of people. But when my husband and I got married and I moved into our home together and somebody had a heartbreak, I opened my Bible and it was gone. It was just gone. And it was lost to me for 25 years. Now, at the time of receiving that letter, I had no idea how to know if it was actually from God. I didn't know enough about the Bible to be able to test it. But I did know that I could ask pastors and Bible scholars, people that were ahead of me in the faith. And every one of them said, oh my gosh, yes, this sounds exactly like God. It's his nature, it's his character. It lines up with the word of God. Fast forward 25 years later, it's Valentine's Day, 2010. And 3 weeks prior, the Lord had given me a massive download to write a book that would later be called Clips That Move Mountains. And I had just gotten started. This is 3 weeks after that download. And that morning, the Lord gave me the assignment to write the introduction to the book. And I'm just like, Come on, God. Seriously, introductions are the last thing. The introductions are about I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to tell you what I told you. It isn't something you do at the beginning. I'm telling God this, right? So anyway, all day long, I'm sort of arguing with them about the assignment. And later that night, I go to a women's gathering group, and they're talking about agape love. It's Valentine's Day. So it's 9 o'clock at night. I'm driving home from that, and I'm reminding the Lord that He gave me this assignment. It's late. I'm tired, but you said you wanted me to write it at the introduction. What do you want me to write about? And the Lord pops into my spirit the love letter from 1979. And remember, it's been gone for 25 years. And I just flush with glory bumps. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're going to give this back to me. I'm even getting glory bumps now as I remember it. And the Lord just reminded me of the last phrase of that letter. I am God, believe it and be satisfied. And I get home and I start looking up on the internet, I am God, believe it and be satisfied. And boom, that letter pops up, and there's pages and pages and pages and pages of it where people had reposted it. And I could not believe my eyes. It was word for word the letter that the Lord gave me. And what was funny to me is so many people attributed it to St. Anthony of Padua. I don't know what that was all about, but a lot of people just said it was anonymous. They don't know where it came from, and it was just there. And I could not believe it. So I copied it and brought it back. So that was 2010. I just need to say that to this day, you can still find people on the internet sharing that letter. It's really cool. And I will link it below. You can read the letter in the link. But essentially, the Lord gave it back to me. And I was fascinated to learn when I looked at it again 25 years later, how much was in there about God's love and your calling. Like, what does love have to do with your destiny? I was able to write about that in my Clips book. And then the Lord brought it back to me again when many years later, 2016 or 17, I was studying in my doctorate program about biblical research. And the question that the Lord wanted me to do an entire research on was, what does love have to do with callings? And He brought that love letter back one more time. And I did a deep dive into what love has to do with your callings, and was able to pull out significant key words like satisfied, fulfilled, content, utterly loved in this letter that draw us all back to God. I learned in that time that callings are not about what you do as much as they are about who you are and who God created you to be. So that was actually the point of the love letter. You cannot learn what your purpose is in life without first knowing your true love. And when you know God and you let Him into your heart, He begins to transform you into who He created you to be. And then the doing is a side effect. It was a crazy, amazing journey. And I want you to have this love letter. In the next video, share how I learned that Maureen was actually my guardian angel. So check that video out as well.